don't rush to increase your GLP-1 dose unless your body is asking for it, and more importantly, it's tolerating it well. Hi, my name is Grace. I have been on a weight loss transformation for almost a year using a GLP-1 with GIP medication known as Zepbound. And while truthfully, I would have preferred to jump to 15 milligrams 6 months ago, my providers have reminded me that GLP-1s should not be about racing to the highest dose. The right dose is the lowest dose that works for me. And weight loss, tolerability, and appetite control all matter equally, not just the number on the scale. I cannot believe that I have been on 10 milligrams for 19 weeks. I'm rounding out my 5 months on 10 milligrams. And I remember when I had this conversation with my provider, 6 months ago, and they wanted me to stay on 10 milligrams for 6 months. I freaked out and I thought, how can you keep me on the same dose for this long? My provider hit me with the dose of reality that was hard to hear. There is no award for reaching the highest dose. Neither is there a reward for staying on the lowest dose. As long as I still felt appetite suppression, I felt satiety or fullness after my meals, and I was still losing an average of 0.5 to 1% weekly of my weight, the current dose is the right dose for me. Even though for week 49 of my weight loss transformation, I did have a loss, I could not help but realize that this past week, I've been doing a lot of mindless walking into the pantry and opening my fridge door and thinking about the things that I could be eating instead of my current menu. I will say that my saving grace this week has been the fact that I've been following a low carb, high protein menu, because it has helped hold me back from, nibbling on my kids' food or finishing their plates. I can't help but wonder, am I actually fighting food chatter, or am I just being lazy and I want the medication to do more work for me? With my provider, as we figure out what the next month looks like for me, do I move up to the next dose or do I stay on 10 milligrams? We revisited this titration chart that I did not create. I found it on Reddit, and she said, remember that chart we have used several times? Let's pull that back up and let's go through those questions and determine if it's time for you to move up. Even though you are still experiencing weight loss, this chart makes titration so easy to understand, really on a personal level. I asked myself these 3 questions, and from those 3 questions, me and my provider determined, is it time to move up? The first question is, am I losing 0.5 to 1% of my body weight averaged over 4 weeks? Because losing 0.5 to 1% of my body weight means that is steady, that is sustainable, and that is healthy weight loss. Anything faster typically means muscle loss or burnout. So if I answer yes to that question, then I move on to question number 2. However, if I answer no to that question, that means I'm not losing enough and I can jump right to question number 3. Question number 2 of this titration chart asks me to consider how I am dealing with the food noise or the constant thought of food and satiety, the fullness or being satisfied after meals. If I answer yes to this question, it means that the food noise is back, it's not manageable, I am not feeling full and satisfied after meals, so I move on to question 3. However, if I answer no to this question, it means that the appetite suppression is still there and the fullness that I feel after meals is not gone. So this means I need to stay on the current dose. I don't need to increase just because I can. Question number 3 asks me to consider, am I experiencing problematic side effects? If the answer to that for me is no, then that is the green light for me to titrate up. It is the right time for me to move up. My body has adjusted to the medication well and can tolerate the next dose. However, if I answer yes to that question, and that means that these side effects are present, they are strong, and they are disruptive to my life, then that is an indicator that I need to stay on the current dose because my body has not finished adjusting to this medication. Over the last almost year, I have been on 4 titrations. I was on 2.5 milligrams for 8 weeks, of which I lost 11.4 pounds or an average of 1.3 pounds a week. I moved up to 5 milligrams for 12 weeks and I lost 9.6 pounds on this dose. That means I lost 0.8 pounds weekly. This was my worst dose yet. Then I moved up to 7.5 milligrams. And while I was on that for the same amount of time, 12 weeks or 3 months, I lost 14.6 pounds, or an average of 1.22 pounds a week. With every titration up to this point, I only moved up because when we asked those questions on the titration chart, my weight loss had slowed down or completely stalled. I could feel the appetite suppression and fullness completely gone, and my medical team suggested this is the right time to increase. That's how I arrived at 10 milligrams. And that's how I've been on 10 milligrams for 19 weeks or almost 5 months, of which I have lost 22.2 pounds. That's an average of 1.17 pounds a week on 10 milligrams of Zepbound. A quick reminder, when I decided last February to really focus on my health and I resorted to this tool to help with my weight loss, I weighed in at 265.4 pounds. Last week, I weighed in at 209.8 pounds. And this week, after being consistent with my movement through this cold weather and using a low carb, high protein meal plan, I lost weight again. I weighed in this morning at 207.6 pounds. That means I have lost 57.8 pounds so far, or probably more impressive than that, I have lost 21% of my body weight. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you screen grab that titration chart so that if you're struggling with titrating, you get to use that resource and ask yourself those 3 important questions before you move up to the next dose. Because truth be told, after 15 milligrams, there is nothing else to move up to. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share in the comments how you have managed your titration on this medication so far. Has it been an entirely provider-led decision? Has it been a personal decision? Has it been a financial decision, due to coverage or the cost of these medications? Thanks for being here, and don't forget, let's keep losing. Bye.